This behind me is my 2022 Porsche Taycan that I have bought now almost 2 years ago to date. I bought it in November on Black Friday of 2022 and I drove it home from Brooklyn, New York. And I'm gonna start out with a hot take. I believe this to be the most beautiful Porsche that has been made in the past decade. I know that's a super hot take, but this isn't about my subjective opinions, but I'm gonna tell you my personal preferences and opinions about this car after owning it for 18,000 miles now, and whether I encourage this to be a buy for most people or not. So let's dive into it. First off, as I said, I really like the looks of this car. It's one of those cars that, like, if you know, in regards to it being a Porsche, at least where I live. I don't live in LA or Miami where there's more car enthusiasts. So most times I can live pretty under the radar and nobody really knows who I am or what the vehicle is, and it works good. But some people are like pointing at it and taking pictures of it and whatnot. So if you're into that kind of thing, that's good for you. I also own a BMW i8, which we are selling because I hate the amount of attention that car gets. I cannot go in person or in public, without somebody taking a picture of me or a video of me while I'm on the road, and I cannot stand that. It drives me absolutely crazy. And my wife loves driving the vehicle as well, which obviously is not comforting for that either. But this is pre-refresh because obviously in 2024, if you don't know, they made a few light changes to the vehicle. Different things like the front splitter and different aero with like these, aero spots right here that go to the wheels. A few of those little things have changed in the vehicle since it came out. But all in all, I think the vehicle is absolutely beautiful, with one slight exception of, it's more of a nitpick when you actually get in the car, but when you look at it from the side profile like this, you can see that the hood immediately slants down like really hard. Although I think that's a fine look, the more you look at it, I think it looks a little bit weird from the side profile. Again, probably being a little bit nitpicky, but my biggest beef with it is actually when you're driving the vehicle. The problems that I have in the actual view of the vehicle. You can't see where the end of the vehicle is, and I don't like that. Every car I've ever owned before has been able to be very clearly seen where the end of the vehicle is, which makes it easy for parking and things like that. But I think the aesthetic of the front is beautiful. I like how everything swoops up on the sides and whatnot. If you did not know, this is where the one of the two charging parts is. They just made the GT version of this vehicle as well, which is like $180,000 or $280,000, something crazy starting. And they removed the two different charging ports because it's kind of useless. Another one of the really unique things it does, you probably can't hear that, but whenever I open this, it locks the other charging port door, so you can't charge it on both at the same time. But yeah, moving down the side, you've got your cameras here for you to be able to do your 360 degrees and whatnot. These door handles will go flush when I lock the car. Yeah, so now they go flush, which brings me to one of my beefs about the vehicle. It actually just unlocked again because it felt me touch it, but I have done this thousands of times opening this vehicle. I never try to touch it to get it to open. Supposedly you're supposed to like rub your finger on that or like slide your fingers underneath it, and it will unlock the vehicle, and it does not work at all, ever. It's like maybe 15% of the time does it actually work. So I just have to unlock the car every single time when I leave. Also, the vehicle does not have lock. So when I walk a certain distance away from the vehicle, it will never lock. It will just stay on. So I've had times where I'll go through the grocery store for 20 minutes, I'll come back, and my car is still on, and the vehicle is still unlocked, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. And then you come around to the rear profile, and specifically the brake light is absolutely sick in this vehicle. I know that a lot of vehicles have the full brake light, but something about this vehicle just looks so nice with it having the full brake light that goes all the way across. And then as you can see down here, it says Porsche in the brake light as well. And then it clarifies that it is a Taycan. And then again, coming around the other view of the other side of the car, obviously looking pretty much the same. And the brakes in this vehicle are absolutely massive because you're looking at a vehicle that's gross curb weight is 6,000 pounds, which is absolutely insane for a car that has 4 seats in it. So anyways, now let's hop inside of the car and chat some details about the inside aesthetics of things. All right, now popping inside of the vehicle here. Sorry, it's not gonna be as clean as some of the weenies in the comments are going to wish it was, which is okay. First off, get in the car, shut the door, and the car does not just turn on for you, which is kind of annoying. Sometimes it does. This time it did. A lot of times you actually have to press the start button. Kind of just depends on the day and how it's feeling for the day. But as you can see, we've got a digital gauge cluster. Like everything else and everybody else, I would prefer to have analog everything. That would be great. But for me personally, I don't really mind that much. It's an electric vehicle. If I were to have an internal combustion engine version, I would definitely want an analog, but I know the brand new 911s that they just came out with don't have that. So again, whatever. I get why people would have the frustration with it, but let's go to the steering wheel. I cannot stand the steering wheel. Feels great, nice leather, whatever, right? But the buttons on this are so terribly chosen. And again, I'm sure this is not just an exclusively Taycan thing. But first off, voice commands, like car manufacturers, just stop putting voice commands in. Until you're going to integrate something like Siri or Alexa or something like that into your vehicles, it's a complete waste. Nobody uses it because they work horribly and they don't work but half the time. Then this button is to change your regenerative braking, and that's something for you to just turn on and off at any given time. You know, a lot of people will complain that more things aren't in the instrument cluster and things like that, which I totally understand. That's one of the things that should be in the infotainment center. It should be. Why? Because why would it not be? Like, how often do you want to change your regenerative braking? This is the Porsche that we have that's fully electric, but we also have a Tesla Model X, and we've had 8 other Teslas in the past between different Model X's. We've had 3 Model X's, and we've had like 7 Model 3s, whatever that adds up to. And we've never found any need to change regenerative braking ever in the vehicle. So like why that would be an immediate button you have to touch here makes no sense. On top of that, it makes no sense that that's one of the buttons that you can press and you don't have the ability to change your song. This is one of the worst. There's nothing back here. There's nothing back here for you to be able to like click. No, there's nothing. Like there's no way to change your song with the exception of this button right here. And this button is not made to change songs. It's just a customization button, meaning that you can just make that button do whatever it wants. Then you have another one right here behind the steering wheel that does the same thing. So for me, I have this for song forward and that for song backwards because I'm like, I like being able to change my songs rather quickly from the steering wheel. Then you have the phone button. Again, frankly, I've never used this button in a car ever in my life, and I know I'm not alone in this. The back button makes perfect sense, and then this is just for your different gauge cluster, configurations that you have. The configurations are fine. You know, I can change it to navigation or to the trip I'm on. I keep it on media or information. I know a lot of people keep it on information. So there's a few little different things that you can do there, which those are fine. Obviously, you can see your battery is here, which I will say, one of the biggest slept-on things about this vehicle and Porsches in general is most people know that Porsche sandbags on their numbers a lot of times, meaning that the numbers that they claim are actually worse than the numbers that the car will get in real world experience. And I have found that to be the case in this vehicle. It's one of my favorite parts of this vehicle. If you look at this online, the 2022 base Taycan, you'll see, I think that the range of this vehicle might be like around 230 miles, if I'm not mistaken. And this vehicle will get somewhere between 295 to 315 every single time, which is absolutely incredible. Considering that's like way more, and that amount of range makes a huge difference. I mean, we're talking almost like, depending on the day and depending on the weather outside and whatnot, you're talking almost 100 extra miles of range, which is absolutely amazing. So the other thing that's really interesting is when I got the vehicle, I got it from Porsche of Brooklyn, and they told me, hey, when you drive it, it's not going to have really good range, but the more you drive it, the better the range will get. And I was like, I think that you might be misunderstood on something because that doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense, but he was right. I got the car and it started with like 230 range and it died after 230 miles, or, it told me it was getting close to dying. So I charged it, and the more I kept driving it, weeks and months later, I mean, I've gotten up to like 315, 320 on this vehicle before, which is absolutely crazy. Another thing in regards to the range that you see here, it says right now that I have 184 miles of range. When it says you have 184 miles of range, what it actually means is you have 184 miles of range. I've had 8 Teslas in the past. When a Tesla says you have 184 miles of range, that means that you have 140 miles of range, probably. It's very inaccurate. And with their software update, they try to get more and more accurate, but they just have not been more accurate. So 184 miles means 184 miles, which is very, very nice. The other thing that you'll see, I'll see if it'll do it right now. I have the AC on, just some. Let me turn it completely off and see if the range changes. Yep, there you go. Now you just see it just went up to 201 from 184. That also will give you a really good gauge of how much of an impact you having your AC on makes. I had my AC on fan speed 2 of 8. I just turned it on 1 and it just went back down to 184. You having a fan on makes a huge difference. I've talked to a lot of people in Tesla forums and things like that, and they make fun of me and they're like, dude, you think that your AC is going to make any difference? Like, dude, this is a massive battery. It doesn't make any impact. It does make a huge difference when you have your AC on and things like that. With that said, I have my back windows, the back windows in this vehicle, because the size of the vehicle, are not tinted either. So none of the windows in this vehicle are tinted. Shame on me, I should have them tinted. Tinting is beneficial because people can't see inside, but tinting is also beneficial because it actually keeps heat out of the vehicle, which means that you don't have to have your AC on as high in the vehicle, meaning that you're actually charging less. So it's one of those things that pays dividends. You do it one time, costs you whatever, $250 for the whole car or whatever, and it will help everything for good in regards to not having to have so much heat on. You got your traction control over here, as well as your suspension. So this is just a quick way to press in your suspension. Your like sport suspension will go on. It's kind of strange. Even though your sport suspension is on, there's a Sport Plus version of suspension, and that's still not on. So I don't know why it's like not configured to just automatically being on. Again, one of those things that I feel like they could have done something better with, like the steering wheel or gauge cluster. I know that if I would have gotten like the Turbo S or whatever, I would have like the little knob here. But, you know, regardless, I think that it's just not the best of setups. Same with all these. I have never touched any of these buttons ever in my entire life. So again, I'm just not sure if those are the best places to have those. Also not sure why they have like more of like an analog display of different problems that the vehicle could have. It's telling me the brake's on, it's telling me the seatbelt buckle is not on. And then like if I had my traction control off right now, it would tell me the ABS light would go on. Why they do that analog, I don't know. It actually looks sick, but I don't know exactly why they do that instead of having all of it digital with the rest of everything. But let's move on to the infotainment. Like most vehicles, I don't know why a lot of car reviewers go through this. You'll never touch any of these buttons. If you're anything like me, you'll go into Apple CarPlay and you'll stay in Apple CarPlay the entire time that you're doing anything that you're doing. There's really no reason to do anything else. The buttons are fine. The setup is fine. For me, I'm spoiled. Again, I have a Tesla. You're not going to get anything close to a Tesla in any vehicle I've ever touched, with the exception of like a Rivian. I'm sure Lucid's fairly similar. But they're just like miles above everybody else. I wish that every vehicle was required to have Apple CarPlay and that Apple CarPlay could control 95% of the vehicle. Because if you're like me and most of everybody else, you're not going to touch anything else ever in the vehicle because the UI is trash on almost everything. Again, Tesla can get away with it because their UI is just like insanely good, but that's my nitpick there. Lastly, we got this screen here when we're talking screens. This screen here, entirely useless. It's almost like you having physical buttons for the AC, I guess, so I like that. But there's this massive spot right here, and what it does is it's like a touchpad that allows you to go to these different buttons. The problem is, as I mentioned, unless you're using Apple CarPlay, if you're using Apple CarPlay, you don't use any of those buttons anyways. And this like touchpad here, it doesn't affect anything with Apple CarPlay. So if I have Apple CarPlay pulled up, this won't move any buttons there. So it's virtually entirely useless. Also kind of interesting, the only way that I have found that you can open the trunk or front trunk is by this button right here. Not in the end of the world, but like there's no buttons down here. There's nothing I can click down here or pull or levers to be able to do any of that. It's just in that button right there. Or my other option is I can do it from the key fob. Then you just see what your charging is. You can preheat, pre-cool, whatever. I've never used that before. I use my AC, obviously, AC seats and heated seats fairly often. The AC seats in this vehicle work crazy good. Teslas are trash. The heated seats are fine in this, but the heated seats in a Tesla are extremely hot. The other thing is the heated steering wheel. Again, I'm sure this is common in every Porsche, but it's between here. There's a button you hear there, and it says, steering wheel turned on. And I was told by the guys at Porsche, again, not sure if this is true or not, but if it is above 60 degrees outside, that will not actually stay on. Like you can press the button and it'll say it's turned on, but it will actually not heat up at all for safety concerns. Really interesting. Didn't know that was a thing. Again, the heated steering wheel, even when it is turned on in very cold weather, I've never felt it. Like I've never felt any warmth come from it. So don't know why that is, but that's a reality. The other thing is when the heat is on in this vehicle or the AC, the fans are all integrated. They're, in my opinion, they're real eyesores. I wish they would do like what Tesla does so that they're like kind of hiding from you. You've got more AC coming out here and then you've got your other one there. That one is fine, but these ones just look ugly in my opinion. But they're set up like automatically in such a way where I never have to touch any of the AC vents or move them, which is only configured through the screen. Kind of annoying, but I've never had to touch them. They're never in my face. They're never bothering me. The AC and heat in this car stay perfect at all times, which again, for me personally, I'm a huge fan of. Then we've got speakers. We've got Bose speaker system. Bose speakers absolutely slap. It's still not better than Tesla's speaker system. I'm just being honest. I know that a bunch of Porsche fanboys are going to get so upset that I keep comparing it to a Tesla. I understand build quality is not the same. I get it. Honestly, you would never know the difference. I'm just saying. In the interior, at least, you'd never know the difference. There's a few squeaks that my Model X has right now after 45,000 miles that this vehicle does not have after 20,000 almost. But other than that, like the feeling, the build quality, like nothing is like offset. The exterior of the vehicle's trash. But the interior, like they're both the same. If I put a blindfold and I took the badges off of them, you'd rather sit in the Tesla, just being honest. Other than the seats being more comfortable. These seats like actually feel more comfortable. The ride quality in this car, way more comfortable than any of the Teslas I've ever owned. The last thing I want to mention up here is you've got this little spot for storage down there. And then you've got, pop that open, you've got a little bit of storage down there. You've got two great cup holders. And then let's move to the back real quick and then we'll wrap this thing up. So coming to the back seats, I have the 4-seat configuration because the 5-seat configuration is pretty much laughable. I am just under 6 foot, and you can see I have plenty of room back here. The glass panoramic roof here makes things way easier when it comes to the comfortability back here. You've got another 2 cup holders here, as well as, if you want to call this a cup holder back here, it's a very, very small cup that you'd have to have back there, maybe like a can of Coke or something. We have our baby seat here and our trash here. The car just turned off because I'm back here, but there's another screen right here that does nothing but just change your AC so that you can do split AC, which is pretty nice in a car that's this small. These seats again back here, I've never like ridden in the back of it, but they're very comfortable seats back here as well. It's not like, you know how Porsche is. Porsche doesn't skimp out on those kinds of things. So it's very comfortable back here as well. You've got your little lights back here, hooks, crap handles, etc. You've got another hook right there. And then you've got this vent right here as well. I think that's kind of strange placement because I'm like, this is the perfect place to set my feet. I can keep them there, but like for me personally, it would be more comfortable to keep them there. So I'm not exactly sure why they put them there because I'm like, so much crap for my shoes and stuff like that's going to be able to get into there. But yeah, back here, it's a great seating position. I have plenty of room between me and the other person. Sorry, it's gross. I have kids that sit back here. But it's plenty of room between me and the person that's sitting over there. And everything is very comfortable back here. Door handles are very nice. They look manual, but it's an electronic unlock and whatnot. But overall, my verdict on this car, absolutely love this car after 20,000 miles almost in it. Never would encourage anybody to buy this car new. My car was $114,000 MSRP and is now worth around $55,000, $60,000. Ouch, I know. So it's one of those things, know what you know now. When I bought it, I bought one of, I think, 7 that were available in the entire country. So I figured it would go up in value because every car before that I had put 30,000 or so miles on and then sold for a profit. That was pre-COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. And I was still able to do that. So I figured I'd do the same thing with this car, and it's a Porsche. It's gonna retain its value even better than a Tesla. Couldn't have been further from the truth. So I made a massive mistake with that. It's a huge problem. Buy one used right now. It is like stealing candy from a baby, getting one of these things for $50,000. You get a real beautiful, beautiful Porsches as well. So anyways, if this has been of any benefit, feel free to subscribe and we'll chat about the other vehicles that we have on the channel and a real world, experience with those vehicles as well. Chat soon.